Welcome everyone. My name's Hilary Roberts and I'm founder and CEO of HRC Recruitment. And I'm delighted on this lovely sunny day, what a difference it makes, to welcome all of you to our second client webinar. And today's subject is creating an enviable EVP. So joining me today, I am delighted to welcome four of our wonderful team from the HRC group. First of all, Mary Minyoth, who is our Marketing and Communications Manager. Mary, good morning, or good afternoon, rather.
Good afternoon, Hilary. Thanks for having me.
Oh, delighted to see you. Also, Kirsty Leggett, who is our HR and Operations Business Partner. Good morning, Kirsty. How are you today?
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's lovely to see you too. Also, good morning to Stuart Roberts, who's our HR and Operations Coordinator. Hi, Stuart. How are you doing?
Hi, Larry. Yes, not too bad. Not too bad. Good to be here.
Lovely to see you. And last, but by no means least, our inimitable Joe McShane, our Chief Commercial Officer. Good morning, Joe. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Hilary, and good afternoon, everyone.
Lovely to see you all. Okay, so our aim today is to keep this webinar to approximately 30 minutes. Allowing us time for a Q&A session at the end. So if you can press the Q&A little button, then we'll deal with questions right at the end of this. Okay, so the one thing that I think we all know for sure is that we are living in really interesting and unprecedented times at the moment. I, for one, in all the years that I've been in the recruitment industry, which is quite a few, have never seen anything like the recruitment and job market that we're currently working in. Interestingly, this week has brought a BBC report, I'm sure some of you might have seen it, stating that there are currently more job vacancies than there are unemployed people in the UK. I never thought I would ever hear myself say that. The unemployment rate in the UK is currently sitting at 3.7%, which is its lowest in 50 years. And there are 1.3 million job openings. The stats also suggest that approximately 500,000 people have left the job market completely in the last 2 years. And that's down to people resigning, probably to retire or go and do something completely different, like world cruises or whatever, and not dismissals. All of this is against a backdrop of rising wages, which, although rising at a rate of 4.2% currently, they're still failing to keep up with inflation, which again came through this week, saying that April it was 9% and expected to rise further. To balance this slightly, S1 Jobs yesterday issued a report stating that April actually saw a downfall of vacancies of 14% on the previous month. However, that's not something that we are seeing at HRC. And so whether that's a blip or whether that's a trend that will continue, I'm not sure. However, it absolutely remains the case that this is a very difficult job market and one where trying to attract people and keep them is absolutely fundamental. So we're hearing a lot of chat from our clients around the concept of EVP. So firstly, what is it and why should we bother? Can I go to Joe to come in?
Thanks, Hilary. As most people on this webinar are probably aware, EVP stands for your employee value proposition. But essentially that means it's a vehicle through which the employer is able to underline to their employees their fundamental importance to the business. EVP was actually first talked about in the early 2000s in L&D circles, but it has gained much greater significance since the pandemic with the labour crisis in the UK, and I use the word crisis very deliberately. The message I would probably want to get across to everyone in this webinar is that, just as Hilary was saying, in my 30 plus years in the employment industry, this is by far and away the hardest market for employers to retain talent and to attract staff. So why bother? Well, it's not just about salaries anymore. How you reward your staff and how as an employer in this marketplace you make yourself competitive for talent is the key. So hence the importance of EVP. Typical examples, Hilary, I would ask people to have a look at reviewing their holiday policy, their flexible working policy, private health, but even issues such as giving your staff cinema tickets or gym memberships to help. These are all the issues that we want to address if we're going to be competitive in the job market that you outlined at the top of the webinar.
Okay. I can't believe you've been in this market for over 30 years, Joe. Who would have thought it?
Sadly true.
Can I go to Mary and get your views on this, Mary, please?
Sure, I think Joe gave a really thorough answer there. I'd just like to elaborate a bit further. You know, EVP obviously stands for employee value proposition. And I think the key part of that is the value bit. You know, as Joe rightly said, employees are looking for so much more than salary these days, and the blend is across the personal and professional spectrum, I think, in terms of reward. It's all about the benefits, the processes, the development, and the balance that you can offer potential or existing employees. We find ourselves in this kind of new war for talent 2.0 or whatever it's being called. And if you're wanting to attract and retain really good people, having a strong EVP at the heart of your business is really going to help with this.
Okay. I mean, things have changed so much from when Joe and I started out in recruitment. It's fascinating, isn't it? Okay, so do you think, what kind of research would you suggest that we undertake when embarking on and actually looking at your EVP? Can I open this up to Stuart, please?
Yes, thanks, Hilary. So, in order to make these, a good informed decision, it's important to first look externally to the market. This meant following journals, analysing national statistics, and even looking to see what other key players are offering as their own EVP. And while this is a useful first step, in your approach to EVP, the most important thing for us, and as it should be for any organisation, is understanding what its people really want. What are they going to get out of the rewards and benefits package? So it's really important to make sure that you consult your team through various surveys, group discussions, feedback sessions, in order to figure out exactly what's going to benefit them the most. In deciding on our benefits, we ask ourselves a series of questions. These are, from looking at it from a holistic approach, how do your benefits support the organization's business and people goals? Will the change be valued by current and future employees? How flexible are the new policies? And, do they cater to everyone? And finally, how would we successfully launch the new initiatives, and who are the key stakeholders that are involved? These are some of the key, questions that we took into consideration before starting to plan and organize our own employee value proposition.
Yeah. I mean, I think the issue of actually how do we come up with something that appeals to everybody was probably one of the biggest challenges that we had, and we're a team of about 60, so it'd be a even bigger challenge for larger companies. Mary, what are your thoughts on this? What kind of research would you suggest?
Yeah, so I mean, I obviously took a slightly different approach to this. From a marketing perspective, we wanted to see what was out there already. What were big global brands doing, and equally what were, SMEs or even our competitors doing, and what was working, what seemed appealing. We wanted to understand how they were marketing their EVP, how they were telling their story, how consistent that messaging was across different platforms, because, your social media presence and your website is essentially your shop window for potential employees. So we wanted to have that consistent narrative that would be interesting and appealing, and something that had a really long shelf life, because actually you should be talking about your EVP whether you're hiring or not. So we wanted to generate content that was going to be sort of evergreen, as it were, but also would really visually stand out against, all of the other claims and promises made across social media platforms. So that was the kind of research that we undertook in order to keep the momentum up.
Okay. So taking all that from both of you, there's a lot of work involved in actually really understanding what you should be looking at here. So you look both internally and externally. Okay, do you think what matters to employees has changed over the past few years? Kirsty, what are your thoughts on this?
I think absolutely. I think there's been a huge shift over the last couple of years with COVID. I think pre-COVID, the main driver would be people are looking for a salary move. Now it's obviously still important, but I think people are starting to take into account the full package. What are they going to get from a company? So what's their work-life balance going to be like? What are their career development opportunities? Are they going to be allowed the flexibility to work? Have they got hybrid working? They're kind of looking at everything before they decide if they want to move. However, as we've kind of discussed, inflation is rising. It's going up. So we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it might go back the way in salary is going to kind of go up the priority ladder again.
Okay. I mean, things have obviously changed a long time since Jo and I started in the workforce, where my primary concern was whether I got luncheon vouchers alongside my benefits package. Mary, what do you think? What's important to employees now?
Yeah, I can echo what Kirsty says there. You know, the past 2 years has seen a huge shift in, you know, desire for some sort of flexible hybrid model. And I think that if you're not offering this in some way, shape or form, you are going to be seen as out of touch. You know, you only have to look on social media to see the backlash against, you know, Lord Sugar and the civil service to know that people want these hybrid opportunities. So I think that's here to stay. Work-life balance, I think, is really important. You know, we talk about well-being, we talk about burnout. And as a response to this, some companies are actually trialling 4-day weeks on 5-day salaries, as it were. So I think that might be something quite interesting that might sort of have a ripple effect across different sectors. But, you know, let's not forget we are living in a cost of living crisis. So if there's the chance to step up the career ladder and take on a job at a higher salary, or even just move to a job, you know, a sort of sidestep with a higher salary, I think a lot of candidates are going to be interested in that just now.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, I think the four-day week issue is really, really interesting. I noticed that one of our competitors that actually was putting it out in social media that that's what they were doing. And maybe that is something that will appeal to people to allow them to maybe take on another job, heaven forbid, you know, moving forward. But interesting times. Okay, so we've obviously done a huge amount of work on our own internal EVP within HRC, something that Stuart and Kirsty have done a lot of work on. So Stuart, can I go to you and could you give your insight into what we've done, what we've launched, and what do you think is working really well?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think there's so much to talk about here. Where do I start? As part of our EVP, we thought it was fundamental that we're doing everything that we can to support the growth and career aspirations of our team members. And this means, you know, equipping them with all the tools and all the skills that they need to work in their current role successfully, as well as, you know, the next role that they aspire to be in. So every single, you know, member of our team, from the most junior member to the most senior member, director level, has the opportunity to work with us to build their very own sort of tailored career development program. And whilst this covers some core training that's really necessary to move into those more senior positions, it also gives learning and development opportunities for areas outside of, you know, typical areas of work. The key here, I think, is to see each team member as an individual and be proactive in their development. For example, some of our team are getting supported funding for training in people management, whereas others are getting support in their desire to learn and practice new languages. This all contributes towards a fulfilling work experience. One of our more tangible benefits, coinciding with our push for mental health and autonomous working, is, you know, the decision to introduce a market-leading standard 30 days and annual leave, which is excluding 8 days statutory bank holidays on top of that. This essentially places more trust in our team, whilst giving them plenty of time in the year to take breaks, recharge, and, you know, get out and enjoy the sunshine. That is it, if we have any. And, you know, for some more for senior members of staff, we also offer some of the more traditional voluntary benefits. Here, they're onboarded onto our Bupa private health insurance scheme. We believe that the money and time that our team can save in healthcare is very valuable, and this gives them access to high tech and excellent service of healthcare It's so important. Health is so important to creating good work and good working lives. So, it can improve people's focus and most importantly, their happiness. So like you've both been talking about, especially in a world where the price of living is increasing, we want to provide excellent financial and health support where we can.
Yeah, okay, very interesting. Kirsty, what have you got anything we've obviously done one or two other things. Would you like to share your insights on that?
Yeah, so something else that we have looked at was we decided that it was really important for us that everyone had life insurance. That was just something that we knew we wanted to set everyone up with. So when we're looking into it, we actually came across a provider who, it was kind of life insurance with a difference. So rather than being a reactive benefit, it's actually a bit more proactive in you've got your life insurance, but it's actually about looking after your health as well. So it offers a whole host of well-being benefits to help you drive those kind of healthy behaviours. So as part of it, it's got a fully supportive EAP service, which gives everyone access to face-to-face counselling, group counselling. There's also career counselling and life coaching. Then you've got access to nutrition consultations, and there's also a smart health app which gives you access to a GP service. So if you can't get through to your GP at home, you can go onto this app, put in a request, and usually within about 20 minutes you've got a doctor on the phone, which in this day and age is absolutely amazing. And the other part of this benefit is it's got a YouLife app, and it gives you like wellness challenges. So you can basically like track how much walking, if you're doing meditation. It also links up to like the Fit app as well. And the more active or meditative you are, the more points you earn. And then with those points, you can redeem them at a number of YouLife partners. So they partner up with things like Amazon, there's Nike, there's Marks and Spencer's, things like that. So you basically use your points and you can redeem it somewhere else.
Okay.
And another kind of project that we've been putting a lot of work into is our hybrid working. So obviously it's really important at the minute, and I imagine it's on kind of everyone's radar just now. So we've been reviewing it over the last few months, been taking feedback from the team about how they want this to look and what we need it to work for our business as well. So at the minute, we've got everyone in 2 days a week. Being a sales team, we did see it was important that we kind of get everyone in at the same time. You want that kind of buzz together. So we're getting everyone in 1 day a week, and then the other day we've got as flexible. And we've also moved to a virtual Friday. This means that the office will be closed and everyone kind of works from home. We just thought that actually on a Friday, everyone closes their laptop at 5 o'clock, and that's your weekend. You kind of start on a high, and yeah, just kind of gets the weekend going a bit sooner. And we've also, obviously getting people back into the office, we wanted to make sure that everyone's got a really good working environment. So we've been taking feedback on what kind of changes they want to see around the office, and we've been trying to implement as many suggestions that we've had as possible, and also doing some work in our IT to just make sure that people can just get set up. Everything's really easy to use. So just making the place really nice to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very long process, hasn't it, in terms of trying to get to bottom out what hybrid working could look like for us. And we even at this point, we've still said we will continue to review, because we live in a kind of ever-evolving state. So hopefully what we've landed on will stick, but it will be interesting to see how things look in another 6 months' time. And I suppose one of the bits of advice I've taken is keep flexible, stay flexible with this, so you can move things and also listen to your people and all the feedback that you're getting from them. Okay, thank you both. We've obviously put a huge amount of work into the EVP. How often do you think we should be reviewing it, Kirsty?
I think it's an ongoing process. So this is not to say that you rip up your EVP every 6 months, but I think if you can stay in tune with your staff and are communicating with them well, and you can kind of gauge whether what you've got is working or not. So you can ask for, if you're doing engagement surveys, you can pop in just a question about how they feel. And I mean, my ears always prick up when someone mentions anything that we've got offered as part of our EVP, to kind of see what the buzz is about it, if it's positive or negative. And if you don't feel that your staff are engaged with what you're offering, then I'd start to review it and see, okay, what's gone wrong, what do they want, what's important to them, and also what would set us apart from the competition.
Okay, I think that's good advice. Stuart, what are your thoughts on this?
So similarly to Kirsty, you know, I think as an HR professional, you know, my job alone should be to constantly be monitoring the market, to understand the latest trends in rewards and benefits, and really keep up to date with what the rest of the market is saying. The landscape's consistently changing, so being aware of the changes outside your own organization is going to be essential to understanding what prospective employees are looking for when searching for employment. And you know, it's very difficult to attract this talent, like you said. So this is one of the key steps, staying ahead of the curve in that sense. However, you know, referring to your own employees should always and still be a priority. So similar to Kirsty, doing the consistent checkups with your team. You know, one of my notes here says that informal checkups to ask your team on a kind of biannual basis, and a more formal annual feedback review of EVP will allow for ample time for the current benefits and reward system to be embedded, utilized, and then reviewed. And that'll give your team enough time to, you know, think about what's gone well, what do we need to improve on, and where are we taking this going forward.
Okay, I'm quite glad to hear that I'm not going to get a request every month for something completely different or a complete overhaul, knowing how much effort and work has been put into this so far. So thank you both. At what stage do you think in the recruitment process, we're recruitment consultants and professionals in this call, at what stage in our recruitment process do you think, or would you recommend that an employer starts talking about their EVP? Joe?
Well, first and foremost, Hilary, I think the employer needs to analyse whether or not their own EVP is actually competitive. You know, the crux of the marketplace at the moment is to ensure that it stands comparison with other companies that are competing for the same talent. So first and foremost, it needs to be competitive. If you've got a strong, good EVP, absolutely you need to shout about it up front, not only to your own staff. That's very, very important. I mean, as Stuart was saying earlier on, you know, getting feedback from the people that we work alongside. You know, in many, many years in employment, nobody ever asked me. And it was wonderful when we, you know, had the opportunity to hear from our staff about what they really wanted. If that EVP is then competitive, you've really got to take that to the market and shout about it, because for all the reasons that you mentioned at the head of the webinar, Hilary, this marketplace is really tough. And if you've got an advantage through your EVP, you need to play that card and play it early.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I mean, looking back, nobody ever asked me either, Joe. They just expected you to turn up and do your job and get on with it, and you got a salary.
Those days are gone.
Oh, those days are well and truly behind us. Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, before you've even thought about starting your headhunt or writing your job advert, the information about your EVP should be, you know, really accessible on your website and on your social platforms. You know, just because you're not looking right now as a business doesn't mean candidates aren't looking at you. And I think that, you know, speaking somewhat selfishly as a marketer, it gives you a really good content chain as well. If you've got lots to talk about, if you can, you know, break your EVP down into different elements, talk about it separately on your social channels, and really just, without giving it the hard sell, you know, really just talking about, you know, what does it look like to work here? What's the culture? What's the values? And what are the tangible benefits that you can get from joining this specific company? I think it's been a good learning curve for the marketing team here actually, is to take this new product to market here, and hopefully that will make a difference with their own hiring efforts as well.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do is you might want to expand a wee bit on how often are we actually sharing the content around what we're doing?
Sure. So what we've done is we've broken our EVP down into different elements. So maybe it's well-being, maybe it's social, maybe it's mental health, maybe it's our super inflated holiday allowance that we're all really chuffed about. And we've broken that down into different elements, and we're sharing each element separately on our social channels over a course of about 8 weeks. Then we're going to take a wee break for a few weeks, and then we're going to come back with some slightly refreshed content for another 8-week run to look at all the different elements that we're offering. As far as I'm concerned, it's something you should be talking about all year round, and that's the commitment we're trying to make here.
So what you're saying is that we need to continue. You can't just put your message out once. You need to keep it out there in the forefront of your candidate base. Is that right?
Absolutely. Social media moves really fast. You can scroll through a feed and see thousands of pieces of information. So if it's not repeated and it's not out there to constantly remind people who you are and what you have to offer, it will be forgotten about, unfortunately. So it needs to be consistent.
Okay, fantastic. Jo, what are your thoughts? How do you think we should be taking our EVP message to market?
Very much as Mary was outlining there, I think the key is the speed with which social media moves. You know, it's interesting when we talk about attracting people. You know, I've been involved in graduate recruitment for many years. And it was only in 2021 that I got asked about our involvement in the community and what we did to support charities as a business. Now, pleasingly, we do a lot in that area, and I was able to answer the questions. But overwhelmingly, what you need to do is get the message out there, and I think social media is vitally important to that.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Well, thank you. That brings us to the end of our kind of official Q&A. Other questions, one that's popped up is obviously with the potential change in the economy, what do you think is likely to happen to the job vacancy market over the next few months? Do you think that it will become easier to find people, and do you think therefore EVP will be such an issue? Jo, can I take this one to you?
Sure. Well, I think the key to this is, you know, I said it in the previous webinar. You know, Unilever came out and said that the war for talent is over because the candidates have won. And the significant thing about that is they said that before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, before the pandemic, there was something like 700,000 unfilled vacancies in the UK marketplace. The ONS study just the other day said there's 1.3 million. So even if we go into a tighter economy, and there's every reason to believe that we will, we would have to see one hell of a recession before we're in the circumstances whereby there are, you know, it's an employer's market. You know, it is still very much the employees have won the war in that respect, and even 200,000-300,000 vacancies coming off the available lists in the UK still leads to way more vacancies than there are talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. I think we need to be really mindful that this war for talent is not going to go away quickly.
Nope.
Even if there is a recession, and I also think it will be very sectorally driven as well. You know, there are areas where you and I were talking yesterday, weren't we, about the challenges of the likes of fintech and financial services and real specialist areas where actually the candidates are not there at the moment, and that's growth areas that are likely to be you know, really strained over the next months and years ahead. So I think you can't afford to be on the back foot with this, can you? One of the other questions is, can I take this to Stuart, actually, in terms of all the things that we have launched in our EVP, which one do you think has had the biggest impact?
Yeah, that's a good question. Personally, I honestly think that doing it's a toss-up between giving people their own career development plans and, you know, introducing our 30 days annual leave. I think that the career development plans, have really given people in our business sort of a long-term view to staying with us. And as we know, as Joe said, it's been repeated many times over this webinar, is that it's so easy for someone to leave and go to another organization, for the same salary or for a better salary. So what else is there? And that's the opportunity to develop their skills and really improve in areas, not that we want them to improve in, but what they want to improve in, what they want to develop in, and giving them different opportunities to go down different routes, possibly into a managerial route or just to another kind of more senior route, giving them all the tools, the training that they need to get to where they want to go, I believe is going to be, it has been and will be really important, and it just sort of ties people in a bit more to your business and to your ethos of learning and development.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what I've been reading a lot about, is that actually it's a toss-up between career development and mental health and well-being. I mean, Kirsty, you're our in-house expert on mental health and well-being. What are your views? How important do you see looking after your team as being part of a really core issue of EVP?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hugely important, and I don't think that it's going to go away, and it's something that companies need to get on board with, because your staff need to feel supported, and if they're struggling, your business is going to struggle. Like, someone's performance goes hand in hand with how they're feeling, so it's in their best interest and your best interest to look after them and make sure that they're feeling fully supported, and just communication is key. So if you keep communicating with your team and just to check in, know how they're feeling and support them if they are struggling, then you'll see a big difference.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And the last question for today's session, can I put this to Mary? Of all the research that you did when you went out to the market to look at other people's EVPs for us, how big an issue is getting the hybrid working model right?
So I think that if anyone knows the answer to how to get the hybrid working model right, they should patent it immediately, because they're going to make a fortune, because it's all everyone's talking about. I mean, if you look around, go and look on LinkedIn right now. There's polls about, do you want to work in the office full time, be at home full time, hybrid working? There's constant information about this. And I think that a lot of companies right now, like ourselves, are still evolving, are still refining this, are still trying to get it right. And so much of it actually can't be based on external research. It needs to be, what are your people telling you? What do they want? What are they looking at? What's making them comfortable? Because what we've got to remember as well is when we first started sort of tentatively coming back to the office, a lot of people were very scared. We hadn't been out our homes for 2 years, or so it felt. And, being around a big group of people again felt a little bit intimidating. So I think that the big thing is that, yes, you can do, literally endless hours of reading and research and listening to TED Talks and podcasts on how to get your hybrid model right. But ultimately, the answer has to come from your own people. What do they want? What's going to make them happy? What's going to keep them there? And whilst I get that a one size fits all, probably isn't appropriate, and there's always going to be some people that would prefer something slightly different, I think just listening to your people, as Stuart and Kirsty have done throughout this entire EVP project, is what's going to keep people happy and keep people in your business.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Can I say thank you very much to my colleagues today for their contribution to this webinar. The session is being recorded, everybody, so we will be putting it out there so you can watch it again if at your leisure, or for anybody who's missed it today, they can pick up on it. And we'll also be following this up with some information that we've compiled, which we'll send out to you, which we very much hope will be useful to you. So thank you all for joining us today.